A very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again. And thank you for joining us for our third and final installment, can you believe it, of our Gauteng Tourism webinar series. I'm back again. My name is Anele Mtsikwa, and I'm coming from Destination Marketing at the Gauteng Tourism Authority. And I, again, will be facilitating another lunchtime session for the next hour and a half. Things are looking very different for me today. And yes, as promised from the last webinar, we're coming live from the audacious and very colorful lifestyle and retail outlet, the Box Shop. Now you'll see this eye-catching building right at the top end of Soweto's famous Vilakazi Street. And I think beyond it being a very chic space and a retail outlet, really the Box Shop is in fact also a business incubator that is designed to promote new and upcoming brands and has given a platform for young entrepreneurs to grow their businesses by reaching markets beyond social influence and eventually positioning themselves in the global markets. Now, it was only fitting for us to find ourselves hosting today's engagement here because the discussions this afternoon are with our local creatives and specialists from the Gauteng creatives industry. And our talk today is under the theme Digital Delivery to expand beyond the limitations of physical location. And Gauteng Tourism acknowledges the importance of the creative sector and the significance of the creative economy. And as it continues to grow, important synergies with tourism are emerging and offering considerable potential growth to the demand. And also really when we talk about product development and experiences to the markets as well. So this is not only just for tourism, but for overall local content. Now, one other is that the creative sector, including tourism at large, has not been immune to the effects of COVID-19. I mean, the pandemic has been felt globally, affecting all walks of our lives, from personal to social and the commercial context. And the creative industries was not exempt to that, nor have they escaped that the significant and the negative impact that the pandemic has brought. I mean, we're talking about industries that are heavily reliant on the convening of people. And when we talk about people convening, that is within the natural aspect in terms of their delivery with the creative artifacts. And consequently, we saw that there were events being cancelled. Markets, theaters, art galleries, and other spaces of public congregation were also forced to close at short notice. And this obviously brought the results of an intense creative effort and preparation just basically coming to an abrupt end. So in today's discussions, we will explore this impact, but most importantly, we want to really discuss the approaches on finding a common solution to doing business and upping the creative economy. So we'll hear from our esteemed panel members from the creative industry who are online with us. Remember that during the discussions, you are welcome to share your thoughts by submitting your comments and we will engage with them. You can also share our social media. We are at Visit Gauteng on Twitter and Instagram, and I Love Gauteng on Facebook using the hashtag GPTourismEngage. Now, to introduce our panel members, guys, thank you so much for being with us today. Perhaps let me give you an opportunity to introduce yourselves before we kick off. And if you could please give a brief intro on who you are and tell us really more about the exciting things that you guys are doing in the creative industry. I'll start with you, Francina.
Hello, everybody. Hello. My name is Francina Ntsimane. I'm an economist and a sector specialist responsible for the creative industries, and I'm based at the Gauteng Department of Economic Development under a chief directorate called Sector and Industry Development, and our mandate is basically SMME development around all the sectors that exist in Gauteng. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francina. Sifiso?
Yeah, my name is Somoyo, founder and CEO of the Box Shop Lifestyle in Vilakazi, and thanks for having me today.
Our pleasure. I'm going to hand over to Stanley.
Yes, colleagues, my name is Stanley Koza. I'm the Vice President of the Association.
Perhaps, Stanley, if you could be a bit more audible. I was struggling to hear you there a bit.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Perfect.
Thank you so much for that opportunity, and to each and everybody beaming live into this discussion. My name is Stanley Koza. I'm the Vice President of the Association of Independent Record Companies of our country. I'm also the youngest chairperson of Mushito Music Market, which is Africa's premium music market. Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Kaya online. Kaya, if you could intro yourself. You're on mute, Kaya. It comes with technology, but we're getting it.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. We can hear you.
Great. Thank you for having me, everybody. My name is Kaima Tungandaba. I am the founder of MRMMK Fashions, which is a consultancy company that deals specifically with young and up-and-coming fashion designers and models. And I'm also the producer for East Fashion Week.
Thank you so much, Kaya, and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you again to the panelists for taking the time to be here with us. And just to kick off really on the discussions, I mean, I'd mentioned that it's been almost 6 months since the nation went into lockdown at the end of March. And today we find ourselves with lockdown having been eased and our creatives industry trying to operate within the new normal, I suppose. And we certainly can't shy away from the critical impact that the pandemic has brought to the sector. Many individuals within the creative industry have been left needing to explore new ways to continue creating. And I suppose they've been left with an uncertain state of where their next salary is going to come in, given the climate that we're finding ourselves in. And maybe just to bring in Francina here, I mean, you've certainly been contributory and quite involved in engaging with the Gauteng creatives in terms of that industry development at the department. What is the current landscape looking like for the sector? And what are some of the engagements and the initiatives that you've had with the creatives in terms of addressing some of these issues?
Thank you, Anele. I hope you can hear me. I think I muted there for a bit. The landscape is not looking fantastic. It really isn't. I think with the loss of revenue in majority of the creative industry domains that exist, it's going to be very difficult to pick up again because, you know, as a government, we have been quite slow in terms of responding to this sector timeously when we were supposed to, especially in terms of SMME development and the view that we have on the sector, that it's not a business, but rather entertainment. But the very same entertainment has now been measured by PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they are releasing reports every single year on the entertainment outlook of South Africa. And the numbers are shocking. You know, the type of contribution that the creative sector as a whole has on the GDP is something else. And the issue that we've had is that because we have been slow in response, the business could not necessarily diversify as quickly as possible when the pandemic started. I think the businesses that were largely on a beneficiary note or who would find it easy to adapt are fashion designers who then migrated and diversified into creating PPEs, protective equipment, you know, for various sectors. So in terms of clothing, textile, leather and footwear, fashion design and all of that, they were able to migrate. But now you look at sectors that are extremely important to the value chains. I mean, sectors like music, sectors like film, there was no diversification there. I think when the regulations came out for lockdown, one of the things that was allowed was, or according to the regulations, what was allowed was recording for public broadcasting. So you could only record for a public broadcaster for TV, for example. So then what happens to cinema production, you know, what happens to music production if it does not fall within the scope of television? What then happens there? So the sector has really taken quite a hit, right? And in terms of the engagements that we've been having, we've done the best that we can to have engagements with local governments, provincial governments, and national government, specifically on the type of relief measures that the sector needs. And I must say that there have been a lot of mistakes in that era of developing what we call relief measures for the creative sector, given that the sector is not the same as others. So if you're going to draw up a criteria for qualification into a relief measure, then it has to be slightly different because the industry itself is different. And having conversations with industry participants and industry players and seeing the difficulty that they are going through to apply for relief funds, the difficulty that they are going through to just merely get whatever operational money they need to get for the business to survive for the next day, you know, or the next month, or whatever the case may be. The minute you shut down everything, then it becomes a bit of a problem. You shut down congregations, you know, cinemas are closed. And now, even with the opening, the easing down of the lockdown at level 2, I mean, the minimum or the maximum is 50 people at a time. But now you get something like a movie theater that seats 300 people. That's a loss of revenue. You can't exactly open a theater to go and house 50 people per movie. So it's quite interesting. It has awakened us as government in the sense that now we are at a point where we have to step back and actually start asking ourselves, what is it that we need to do to fix the situation? Because we have been slow, firstly. Our relief measures have not been adaptive. And the SMME development programs that we've run and the incubators we've set up have been quite, you know, it was late. They're doing well, but it was late. So we have a lot to do on our side. The engagements are helping out, but it is a reality that the sector has taken a dip and it's going to take time for us to actually pick it up again.
Yeah, and I mean, very important things you've mentioned, especially now taking into the recovery phase of all of this, Francina. Now, you mentioned statistics as one other element, you know, that they are shocking and it's quite scary. Now, do you think from a government point of view, I'll give you an example. Now, one thing has been evident, I mean, from our experience with the pandemic is that in going into recovery, digital, for example, and digital skills are now going to be more critical than ever. Now, given this, you spoke about statistics and data. Now, data has also been identified as something that's going to be of utmost importance, and digital is certainly going to assist us with this. What are your reflections on this from a both challenges and an outlooks perspective? Do you think that perhaps collecting data from across the sector should be one of the things that we need to take on in order to help then the policymakers and government understand and respond to the creative sector in terms of the recovery?
So in terms of data collection, that was actually one of my peeves when I started in 2015 in the sector. The lack of data was astounding, which made it understandable. Uguti, why is it that every time that interventions are developed, we miss the target? Because there's no data. So what happened was the Department of Arts and Culture then set up the South African Cultural Observatory. And in 2016, the South African Cultural Observatory released a creative industry outlook, cultural and creative industry outlook. And it was shocking to find that 47% of the sector, the entire sector in its totality across all domains, 47% of the sector is in Gauteng, right? Last year, we did a market intelligence research on animation alone, right? 40% of animation studios production, distribution happens in Gauteng, right? And then you've got 47% of employment as well. And this is only formal. We're not even counting the informal part. Informal is still going to shock us. We are still on the formal part. It's in Gauteng, right? And now when we started releasing those numbers, government intervention started to adapt. But then again, it was too slow, right? So in order for us to understand what to do with a specific sector, you need to understand the value chain and how it works. One of the mistakes that happened was that the creative sector, when you look at every policy document or strategy, there was one value chain for the sector. It doesn't work like that. Music has its value chain, film has its value chain, fashion has its value chain, animation has its value chain. And to hit the target right in terms of SMME development, you have to address the sector based on its value chain, not the value chain of the creative sector, its own particular value chain. Because when it comes to issues of digitization, let's just leave the fact that the ICT infrastructure in the country is not ready, right? The ICT infrastructure in the country is a support infrastructure which is critical to the creative sector. Now, we do not have enough Wi-Fi hotspots, right? And that's one of the reasons why our creative sector is struggling. The cost of data is way too high. And the fact that we have not expanded broadband into townships, broadband into transport nodes, the fact that we do not have broadband available and hotspots available in places of congregation, it becomes an issue. I mean, if you were to go to people who are event organizers and ask them how much it costs to just have Wi-Fi running for a whole event, it's a lot of money. So now the digitization part, yes, we need the digital skills, we need to code, we need all of that. I have no opposition to digitization and the skills. All I'm saying is the ICT infrastructure itself is not ready. We need to make sure that our ICT infrastructure as a country is ready and the cost of data is brought down, either brought down or subsidized per sector according to the cost of production for that various sector. One of the reasons why we are struggling in the creative sector to sell products, a simple thing like the dress that I am wearing. If I go and buy the dress that I'm wearing at a designer shop, I will probably get it for something like 800 to 900 Rand. If I go to a Somalian shop, I get the same dress at 250 Rand because the cost of production in South Africa is very high. There are certain contributory factors, water supply, electricity. Right now we are load shedding. Every time we load shed, everything that is online drops off. So there are certain challenges to digitization that we have as a country that need to be addressed, because if they are not, the cost of production will continue to be high and we will continue to struggle to support locally made products. So yes, data helps in that sense, but if you're gonna look at data from the perspective of a creative sector and not necessarily the ecosystem, it becomes a bit of a challenge. And that is why it has been so difficult for us to adapt.
Sure. And I mean, on the topic of digitization, really, and like I mentioned, the pandemic really has forced us into a space where we no longer can say we are late, what's going on. We are living in it.
Yes.
And so the surge in digital adoption is set to continue.
Yes.
Let's talk about the industry's digital transformation. Now, as we move into a new reality that is certainly, like I'm saying, forcing us to be more digital and more innovation, Sfiso, you can come in here as a co-founder of this lovely space that I'm in at the Boxshop Lifestyle. You are now, we're clearly faced with a clear imperative that you have to make digital and e-commerce a core element of your company's strategy. How did you guys navigate your way around that transformation in order to ensure that this space remains sustainable?
All right, so thank you for giving me the opportunity, Anele. I think as the Boxshop, we have always been cognizant of where the world is going, right? And we know that the world is going digital, and we had to kind of adapt into the space of digital. But if you look at the context of South Africa and South African consumers, primarily consumers in the township, right? Osun Timane is kind of, Osun Francine has kind of alluded to us to say, as a country, are we ready with multiple things to make sure that we make the digital transition kind of seamless into the market and the marketplace? And I think at this current moment, I'm saying, we are not there as yet, because there are multiple factors that enable a retail environment in a digital environment. And the digital environment is that as much as consumers can be able to kind of stock or buy their product online, what about the value chain? And I'm talking about the upstream value chain, not the downstream. So when we talk about the upstream, basically is the logistics element, right? How are they centralized? How are they seamless? And how do we better get the product into the client's hands without it taking a couple of days or taking about a week for it to get into the market, right? But also there's a number of issues. I mean, we are quite bootstrapped as small entities, right? Because in terms of the economy of scale, we cannot compete. So there are a number of things that we need to do. We need to educate consumers, right? We need to educate consumers about the idea of digitization and how do we create an experience of buying online quite seamless, right? And that has been the challenge. We have launched our online store, revised it, I think, in early May, and we did it just on time when COVID-19 hit. And one of the things that we've been experiencing, we've been having a lot of clients that are outside of the country. It is a good way because at least we are reaching markets that are outside of this continent and also outside of the country. But also, it's because they have data, they have everything. So one of the things that we did as the workshop, as a strategic, way forward, was to partner with DHL Soweto. And DHL Soweto has enabled us to be able to bring products or to transport product to areas like Geneva. We have clients in Belgium, with clients in UK, and they have been buying. But also to get the product to them, you need to sell your product, and also you need to charge them, the courier cost. And for the international market, it's quite pricey. So when they buy a product for $800, for example, and you have to ship it, you need to ship it for about 1,000 too. So who's absorbing those costs? And if I'm an entity, I'm the one that is basically absorbing those costs. Does it make the business feasible and sustainable? At this current moment, it leaves less to be desired about the digital space. But the times are forcing us to move into that direction. The only thing that needs to happen is how do we consolidate these resources? How do we make it quite cheaper and easy for a small enterprise or for an enterprise to be able to run its businesses online? But also one of the things that I've noticed about the industry is the lack of cohesiveness and collaboration among brands that lives online, especially small enterprises, because we still see ourselves as individuals. And if we continue with that thinking, especially in this time, we need to move away quickly into the ideas of individualism, especially among brands and emerging brands. This is a time for small enterprises to collaborate, to share costs, whether it's from marketing, whether it's from logistics, and also from manufacturing perspective. So if I talk about the downstream, what has kind of helped us to survive, it's the point that you're talking about, the PPEs and all of those kind of stuff. And if you look at, the downstream in terms of CMT work, if we can continue to give small CMTs work to manufacture our products, we can actually reduce the cost of the product drastically. So where we are sitting now is that if you look at the dollar rand exchange most recently, right? The fabric, which was selling for about $35, if you can go to market now and buy that fabric, the fabric sells about 55 rand per meter. Already, we are not competing with the world. And basically that's the reason we find ourselves in this predicament situation. So COVID-19, for me, it has exposed, the structural challenges, the policy challenges that we have as a country, and it has basically compromised, it basically has shown us where are we as a country. And, I would tend to kind of agree with Francina to say we might be behind as a country. And the question is, how do we quickly catch up?
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, digital savviness is definitely going to remain crucial for retailers and brands in order for that adaptation to happen, especially when it comes to consumer preferences. And I mean, sure, I agree with you that there's an opportunity for us to create greater demands here. And you spoke about collaboration, but given this, how do we get our products to then be consumed, within these challenges, but more so consumed, I think, in a manner that is more conscious, the fact that local content is an important part of what you mentioned, the value chain, yes. And the things that you mentioned now, I'm placing myself now in the shoes of a consumer. I think it's going to be very important that we start even educating our consumers to be more conscious, because there are these challenges, and you're mentioning pricing, you're mentioning costs, you're mentioning all the things that are involved behind the scenes. But how do we start allowing a space for consumers to know and give the importance of buying local, so that at least when I know I'm buying a t-shirt or I'm buying a mask from a local brand, I know that I'm contributing greatly to the bigger value chain that is there. How do we ensure that this is understood by consumers, Fiso?
I think we need to take into cognizance first that in terms of, the inequality gap in South Africa, the have and the have nots. And we do have that reality, and that's our reality in South Africa. If you look at, the middle class and the growing middle class, of course, after COVID-19, the middle class, they will shrink about 33%, based on the impact of COVID-19. But we've been getting the clients that are middle class and that have been buying our product, and they're quite conscious about, the reason why they should support local, because how does that translate into job creation and the growth of the GDP and et cetera, et cetera. And we do have that market, but it's also about affordability. Now let's go to the class that is basically marginalized, those that can't afford, but they want to buy the product. The product continue to become too expensive because production in this country is expensive. I mean, where do we get our fabric, first of all? I mean, the fabric needs to travel all the way from either Asia, right, or Europe in Germany for it to get into South Africa. If you look at the Ankara, that there's a claim that it is actually sourced in Ghana. It's not sourced in Ghana. It's not manufactured in Ghana, but it's actually manufactured in Germany, and it gets shipped to to all these East African countries before it comes here. Imagine the input cost before it even gets here. I mean, a simple Ankara fabric, it does not go less than $300 per meter. To put a dress together, right? Looking at how South African women are kind of shaped and their sizes, right? You end up, using a fabric of about, 3 meters to about 4 meters in a dress. How much are you going to retail that dress for? So we need to go back into the basic and say, how do we unlock the CMT sector? When China came into the forefront, or when these agreements happened with China and other Asian countries through BRICS, what then transpired was that, they came in, they brought cheaper products, they killed the industry, they took the jobs away. How do we become very steadfast as government and say the jobs have been taken away due to, the policies that we have made, due to these agreements? How do we bring back the jobs? And I think what's important is to start a conversation about how do we bring back the jobs in South Africa. And we can only bring back the jobs if we can enable, the CMT and the manufacturing sector to thrive and revive it.
That has been quite a lot. And you know what, we'll touch on local content much later, and then also get into the music and entertainment industry. But I also want to remind our attendees that we will be having a special performance later on, just after the session wraps up. So please don't drop off, stay online, and join us with Kitchen Mess later on after the session, just before 1 o'clock. But to continue with the discussions, right here at Box Shop, I've seen some of that amazing work from our local designers. And I mean, I'm already personally inspired to go back into the swing of dressing up again. I've been home, I've been working from home, and truth be told, COVID forced us certainly to start reimagining our wardrobes. And like I said, if I'm somebody working from home, my fashion, my big trends for fashion was really more about comfort. And now you mentioned earlier, PPEs. It's now about masks and more masks. I mean, Kaya, maybe let me bring in you here. As a local designer and producer, fashion designer and producer, how did you have to go about now adapting to this new lifestyle of consumers? Were people coming in to still come and shop? Do you think there's a shift in the way we are going to start dressing? Masks are now becoming the norm. How did you have to adapt to that one?
Well, truth be told, the time that designers made masks was basically just a survival strategy, to be quite honest with you. There was no income coming. There was nothing that they could sell from, because everything was in lockdown. So it was just a matter of like, they had to, make them, not just for the sake of protection, but because of survival. There was no other option that they could have done it with. So in that sense, it is quite important to understand that while everybody was at home, the main retailers, your Edgar's, your Mr. Price's, your all of these other major retailers, those are the ones that actually benefited more than the simple designer from the street, because number one, they were more accessible. Because now, even when lockdown happened, there were when we went into level 4, those were the easiest spaces to access rather than going to your local designer at the corner, because you couldn't go outside of the street. So it was quite difficult for people to actually talk about trends and talk about what is going to be happening. But what I do appreciate is that in terms of like our own African aesthetic, in terms of patterns and everything, that we are more embracing that in terms of our own designs of our masks. So that itself kind of creates a consciousness of like, we need to start supporting local designers. We need to start actually supporting the guy on the corner so that they can actually make a living, because that was the only way that they could actually survive. So at this point in time, while we're moving into while we're in level 2, level 1, all I can say is that we still like, buyers are still not conscious of like what they should be buying. Rather, let me say that,
Mm.
because now the issue is that as much as it's cheaper to buy from a Mr. Price or an Edgar's or whatever, it's much more important that we support local designers and people that actually produce locally, because they create their jobs. They basically drive the economy. So if we do not support them, it's going to be creating much more bigger issue, especially when it comes to unemployment, because now next year, that's where we're going to start to feel the pinch of the entire lockdown, because our economy is shrinking. We already know that, and it's a fact. So now it's just, now how do we actually start to migrate into the digital space? So with what I have done personally is that I've basically looked into um, easier ways to basically transact, easier ways to actually communicate the message of the brand, easier ways to say what I am selling, and basically easier ways to basically get in touch with my clientele.
Mm.
That way, that's where technology actually comes in. And I understand that in terms of ICT infrastructure, we are not ready. But however, the technology that is there, that's what we must capitalize on, because we cannot expect to have the the greatest. We cannot expect to be China. We have to start where we are. As Africans, you have to understand, they are the most what's the word again, where like
Intuit.
somebody has ingenuity. Yes, that's the one.
Yes, yes.
so so we have to basically be creative in terms of how we start to sell our products.
Mm.
I can make an example that with what's happening right now in terms of the limited spacing that we are able to find ourselves in, we need to start looking at how can spaces like pop-up markets, um, you know uh, basically more on pop-up markets, because pop-up markets, they pop up and they're directly there, they bring you directly to the consumer in a space where there is a lot of people. So that direct market access is what people need. This whole thing of people, they work from home and then they sell from home cannot work. People need to find themselves into spaces where they can actually meet their clientele directly.
Yeah.
That's where me in my fashion production, that is quite key, because now when I look for fashion productions, I actually try to collaborate with the malls so that I can actually create a pop-up outside where people who actually are actually there to actually buy their things can actually come and see and sample physically and locally designed products. That is quite important, because now that creates an important avenue for young designers or anybody who just came into the game to basically like have tap into the main the middle class market. Because now as soon as you move out of Elokshin and basically put yourself into into that space, you have better chance of actually making more money and basically surviving another day.
Okay. But Kaya, touching on the topic which you went on strongly with, and we explored it earlier with Sfiso, local content. We discussed the importance of buying local, and that it should be really about being conscious and knowing and understanding where your product comes from. And you also mentioned that maintaining a positive relationship between the supplier and the consumer. Let's explore more reasons to buy local. If you could give us your top three over and above, what we've touched on in terms of supporting the local economy. What are some of the reasons to buy local?
Well, there are five main reasons actually why we need to support local. One, obviously you create a job for the next person. Two, when you buy it, it's less energy intensive. It has a less it has a low carbon footprint. When you create something from your from your corner there, the cost of production, the cost of energy to basically create all of that becomes lower than exporting all the way from China, where the manufacturing processes include a lot of toxicity towards the environment. Because you have to keep that in mind, that the fashion industry contributes like it's the second most uh, uh, um, pollutant, highest pollutant industry that is within the entire global world. It is worse. It is basically if it's oil, then the fashion industry basically. So that's when you support locally designed brands, basically you are able to basically save on the environment, because right now we are experiencing global warming. It's a reality. Also, another thing that is important about supporting local is that you are able to create a job for somebody. That is something that is quite priceless, guys. If you create a job for somebody, he creates a job for somebody else. You basically create an economy whereby all the production that is in the entire country is local. That is why countries like China are thriving. Everything that is done, everything that they consume in that country has been produced locally. So it is quite key for people to actually get cognizant of that. We need to, us as designers, in fact, even all art practitioners, to educate people to rally around the whole hashtag support local, that we have to basically consume local and basically be able to know why we need to consume local. Because now, as soon as you listen to a Mariah Carey or consume a Louis Vuitton, or you consume something else that is not native to your country, you're basically taking money out of your country and putting it somewhere else. So it's important to put everything here, make it cohesive, make it consonant. We need to learn how to basically consume local. So that's the main key for me.
And yes, I think that really is the spirit. And of course, local products would have ultimately been designed with the local market in mind. And, in other words, buy locals for the locals. And
Yes,
when it
yes,
comes to the sourcing of products locally is far more, I think, a feel-good matter for consumers. And local
yeah,
purchases are very important, like you mentioned, in terms of keeping, the local economy thriving. And the
yes,
potential economic impact of keeping our rands here is far more
mm,
significant on the country, on the community, and certainly the economy depends on it. Now, one other thing that the local economy depends on is the entertainment industry. And we saw events which are the lifeblood of many entertainers, being cancelled across the world. Music experts have seen artists now coming and using online platforms globally. We saw a bit of a positive development with some musicians now turning to virtual concerts. Entertainers, musicians, most of them, they really make their income from live performances. But now, because of COVID, we saw many others seeking new models to generate income again. Things like online streaming, for example, are becoming more prominent in the current climate in which we find ourselves in. But really, how adequate is it when it comes to paying an artist's bills? Stanley, I want to bring you in for this discussion. So in the arts, they say the show must go on, ne? Reflecting on the entertainment industry and what we were faced with during the hard lockdown, was this the case? Did the show go on? Were local musicians forced to find new ways to entertain people? How was this received, and what are your reflections on this one? If you could unmute yourself.
Technology and 4IR Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. Truth be told, for the music industry, COVID was a great trap for us. It was one hell of an inconvenience, purely because it has set aside small, medium enterprises, which are record companies in nature, to debts. It has created a platform for people to find themselves vulnerable. I mean, you can imagine an artist who pays rent and monthly fees is dependent on performances and is not working for 8 months. You are now owing a landlord. You stand to lose your own property. You've got kids that goes to school. You still owe a school fees. So we can list all the realistic challenges. In a nutshell, that the COVID has been the most painful death for our sector. Yes, we had to find amicable ways of keeping the sector alive, keeping artists performing so that they do not lose touch with society, with their fans, with their communities, because that's what they exist for. A complete shutdown in artistic creativity will be the death of this nation. Really, because of them, people were sitting in the comfort of their homes, being entertained, even as sad as it will be, because there's a difference between performing for an audience and performing alone without an audience and people trying to watch them. So, but because they're entertainers, they created an environment out of what seemed like a deathless society, so that they just, keep community alive, keep families in hope that things will turn good. Was the move to digital great? Look, when you put popcorns into hot fish oil, they have no choice but to get ready for people to eat. As a nation, we were put into a pressure mode by COVID. We had to migrate into a digital space. Do we have the policies in place to be able to deal with that and make sure that the gains of the industry are well enjoyed versus the use of the platforms? Because there's a difference between a consumer of content in a particular platform and being the person that makes revenue because you own the platform. So if you look at the South African case scenario, for example, South Africa does not have any digital resource that it can say, this we own, none whatsoever. You want to talk about network, Vodacom, Cell C, and all the others that we can list. For example, if you buy a song on digital platforms, the network will take 50% of that just for the use of the network. If state owned these things, it will be simple. We will be able to have state decisions and state policies and state policy conditions that says this is how we want trade to be inspired and encouraged in our country. So being dependent on somebody that runs the platforms, and also you being the person that has the talent, that has the material that can be broadcasted, is a bit of a challenge. Yes, we see our people are on iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, and all the others, including YouTube. Yes, people across the world can now get access to this content because that's what we need. We want people to just, be able to acknowledge that we exist. I mean, let's use the Master KG example right now. I mean, there's just gone over 100 million views on YouTube. I wish to live for a day where that one view on YouTube was 2 rand or 3 rand, to be able to calculate how much will that be, in financial value, not in digital reference to say, this is the platform where I'm trending. Yes, people are making money on those platforms. Is it enough? There's a lot of questions around that. Yes, we are hoping that this ICASA will start to deal with such issues and engage really these networks to bring down the tariffs and make sure that our people in all the remote areas of our country can consume music at as reasonable as possible without that exploiting the actual artist that makes the content. So we are dealing with a situation in our hands where we need government to step in to make sure that the digital trade policies are in favor of the creators of content across board, from music, film, to all the forms in which music is consumed in these digital platforms. But the most challenging thing that I've seen for the music sector was the pain of not being able to do what you're supposed to do or what God has gifted you as a talent to be able to use to generate income. Because, for example, if you make a show now digitally, you don't get the money right here now. It's different booking the box shop where people pay 100 Rand, 150 to come watch you. It's a physical relationship, you know. So there's lack of consumer education on how people must consume our music. And majority of the consumer education programs only happen in Sun or Sun City, all these places with tin at the end. But the people that are supposed to be learning how to consume these things are across the 9 provinces of our country. If you go to Polokwane, you need to educate people in Polokwane what is the importance of buying dresses that are made. Who do those dresses? When you do that, I'll give an example. If you look at the lawyers that were born out of these mothers who sell avocados in each and every corner next to a school, who sells peanuts, who sells mili. I mean, I'm a product of that. So I can't sit here and want to shy away from the fact that if you support that person that sits in the corner and sell you local product, you are building somebody else's future. You get what I'm saying? So we need to be realistic. We need to show people true examples of how important this thing is. If I was born out of that, how many million other people were born out of their moms and dads hustling, selling cabbages, selling milis, selling all the things we produce. The challenge with fashion is that one, for you to get a fabric, you depend on Chinese. That's the first issue. So whatever you manufacture here, they can sell it at 100% cost without feeling any impact. We don't have factories in South Africa that manufactures fabrics that can be sold locally, that can be sourced locally, because that will bring down the cost of how much you buy the fabric. Remember, for you to get to saying you're buying it at 300 Rand a meter, it's because they are looking at one, how much does it cost to get it? Where does it come from? What are the cost implications of getting it here versus the one actually doing the sewing? So I want to pause there.
Yeah, and I think really when we talk about educating the consumer, and it's a thread that keeps coming through, in terms of that digital consumption for music, you know, and acknowledging, like we mentioned earlier with Francina, that there is still a digital divide in Africa. When it comes to that consumption, how is that digital divide being bridged? I mean, in urban areas, of course, there's going to be a larger consumption of music that is being digital. But what about your more rural areas, or should I say areas that wouldn't necessarily have access to technology? You know, someone in rural KZN who still buys his Maskandi music from the boot of a car, and he's still buying a physical CD. What do you think is being done, or maybe should be ensured that there's really everything is leveled up and that the digital divide is being bridged? Quick one.
Yeah, look, the true reality is that this COVID-19, actually, let's put COVID-19 aside. We have noticed that there's a birth of dual economy in every sector. You'll have the digital world, you'll have the physical world. The physical world allowed local artists to buy houses, stay in proper environments, be able to live greatly and have great returns of environment. The what you call the digital platforms are still there. They are creating that resume. They make you look cool and all that. Yes, you do make a bit of money, but it's too different to the physical relationship and benefits. One of the things that, please hold on. Yes, Anele?
No, I'm still here. You can continue, Stanley.
You're speaking, yeah. So there's two dual economy that we're going to be dealing with. You're going to be dealing with physical trade. You're going to be dealing with digital trading. Now, why do you do that? Is because you want to create a balance. Those who enjoy physical copies needs to get their physical copies. Those who believe in selling digitally needs to make sure that they deal with digital capacity building. Also, for us to be able to get this thing right, we need to understand two important components. One, we need to have digital trading conferences where we speak about the truth, the realities of all these platforms and how they are impacting our economy. Because you must remember, I don't think the president of the country does have the time to sit and ask himself how musicians are making money out of these platforms or if they are working. But because we are in the sector, the president needs to be able to allow platforms where we are able to help him better understand the challenges. I'm happy that they have returned the copyright amendment bill, they have returned the performance protection bill so that the industry can look at some of the challenging issues. And I think that with some of this document, we are beginning to speak to how do we create a balance and develop people and develop policies that will better guide the returns of investment for all our practitioners.
Yeah, we've had some interesting and insightful engagements around the Gauteng creative sector. And I guess now going into a new world order, like we've been discussing in our previous webinars, and you know, post the hard lockdown, a key consideration really is going to be how do we engage now and look forward? You know, we cannot be somber, you know, we cannot remain somber, but on the development, in terms of the development of building capacity in order to assist in the transforming of local talent into a catalyst for a dynamic creative industry that can then foster some sustainable employment while obviously and most importantly contributing to the economic growth and the enhancement of the destination. Now, before we get into that, I want to get some parting shots with the panelists. Perhaps let's rather do a Q&A because I can see we've got a bit of some commentary that's happening within the chat. I'm going to hand over to Mputle. I think she's there from the technical team to read out some of the questions and comments before we wrap up. And then after the Q&A, I think panelists, this will also be an opportune time for you to share any details of how we can find and follow you post this webinar. Mputle?
Thank you, Anele. We don't have too many questions, but we have one interesting comment from Shoni Rasilabe. And this is what he's saying. Stakeholders need a source that will help them get their consumers comfortable within the digital world first, right? And we also need an invasion that will also help stakeholders minimize the cost of digital marketing as a whole. I guess this is open to everybody to comment on and just hear what they can say on what Shani has brought up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mputle. Panelists? Is there anyone who wants to give it a go? Francina?
Okay, there, I had to unmute myself a little bit. Shoni is right, in the sense that, you know, when you talk about digital marketing, if we're gonna go digital and sell things on digital spaces, there are two ways. First, you have to market the platform and you have to market the product. And in marketing the platform, you have to market the efficiency and the usage of the platform itself, right? I mean, most of us that are in urban areas, we still have a problem with online shopping, right? We still have a problem because of the issue of having to release sensitive information like your credit card and the security behind that, right? But also the level of communication that happens between a consumer and the digital platform once a product has been ordered and you have debited my account and my money is gone, but now I am not seeing the product. So he's quite right in the sense that we need to actually start looking at the issues of subsidizing digital marketing, because if we are now going to say, okay, we're moving into a digital era, we're going to trade digitally, what does that mean? And how is that going to work? And how are we going to create e-commerce security around that? Because the problem is that there's the fraud. Fraud is there, you know, anybody can steal money from any kind of platform. And then how do we verify that the human resources hired by the owners of the platform are credible people? So there's a lot that goes into putting together a digital platform, especially throughout the element of risk mitigation and making sure that the platform is credible.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that we need to consider. And yes, I agree with them. I think from now on, if we should actually propose as government employees that as a package for every SMME development fund, there should be an element of funding the digital marketing part, because that is extremely important, because marketing itself is important. But now if we are moving into a digital era, it becomes even more important, because not only do you have to market, like I said, the platform, you have to market the credibility and the risk limitations that come with that platform.
So you developed a digital platform for the box shop. What are your thoughts on that one?
Can you please repeat the question? I missed the last point.
Okay, sure. Mputle?
Can I go ahead, Esfiso?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so Shoni also want to know how can we bring in intervention that will help stakeholders minimize the cost of digital marketing as a whole.
Okay. All right. So
Did you get that, Fiso?
I'll jump in. I kind of headed a bit to say how do we, I think the point was more about digital marketing. For me, I think there's a point that I like having a conversation with, especially with my peers in the industry, to say there should be an opportunity for us to pilot ideas of how do we amplify local brands, how do we take a pool of brands that are doing great in the market, especially local brands that have a potential to be exported into other markets, and how do we adopt them and consolidate them so that we can create an easy logistical streamlining of business operation. And it's as simple as taking this brand, adopting them, and putting them into a marketplace that can create an opportunity for them to distribute their product easier in a more cohesive and streamlined way, so that we can become very much competitive. And I think for me, the country or South Africa or Gauteng, we tend to invest a whole lot of money on kickstarting things that we have never tested. And I think it's very important that we should test things first, pilot them, perfect them, and then start rolling them out, so that we can make sure that we don't overspend on our budgets, and to make sure that we kind of meet the objective that is much needed. So we actually have to be careful on how we invest on things. So I can hear the idea of subsidization of digital marketing, but have we tested it out yet? So for me, before we even go into full steam on interventions like that, which are quite great, but do we have a central place where we can pilot this thing? And once we pilot this thing, as Francina has put it right in terms of data, at least we now have data to justify why should we roll it out on a national scale. And I will talk about the box shop. I mean, it took us 5 years to actually pilot the idea, and we are confident enough now that we can roll out this pilot and we can roll out this idea nationally. But if we didn't really pilot, we're never going to have lessons. We're never going to understand, how to approach, and build strategies. And I think we need to be a country that support the ideas of piloting, and also that promotes research and development. And it's very important that we should be able to focus on those areas.
Yeah, very important. Now, before we wrap up and ponder on those discussions, remember, if you've missed out on any part of the session, you can also check it out, post this webinar on our YouTube channel. We are at Gauteng Tourism Authority. I'd like to have our panel at this stage say some of their viewpoints as we wrap up. Maybe then let's get to Kaya. Would you agree that the introduction of a new and diversified products into the market to stimulate the economy should be placed at the top of the agenda, and particularly for SMMEs like yourself?
Oh, yes, definitely. Because I'm going to answer your question with the previous question that they asked regarding marketing. Let's start with the basics. We as South Africans, we cannot say that we don't have the physical infrastructure that requires a business to run. We already have social media. Each of us has a phone, you know. So let's start there. What can you do with your phone? You know, you have your Facebook, you have an Instagram, you have a WhatsApp. There's features in those platforms that are conducive for business to thrive. You know, at least having a business account or even like transacting, because like there's a new app that has come up. It's called Cheaper Cash. Cheaper Cash basically it helps you to transact money using airtime. So people can start using those platforms and start playing with them, you know. And yes, it is true that you need to pilot it to actually know if it works or not. But all I'm saying is it is already there. So in terms of how I use the technological innovations that are currently available, because remember, as much as we say that we are behind in terms of our own technological innovations, we must look at what's already out there, and that's just research. It's just sitting on your mobile device using Google and then seeing what your problem is and basically how can technology solve it from a simple app, you know. So I'm relying heavily in terms of, you know, app and on apps to basically shoot content, to develop new sales strategies, as well as basically get a way to see how can I manage the clientele that I've already had in terms of my databases and in terms of like how do I basically meet new clients as well. So platforms are there, communities are there, you know. It's important to actually tap into those technological innovations so that we can be able to, you know, see how best can we develop our business from getting from point A to point B. It's not supposed to, you have to remember that a business is not something that is going to happen overnight. It's something that takes time and steps and steps. So we need to just look at you need to look at what your current problem is today, and then see what kind of technologies are available there that have been used over years, because we are behind, yes, but does not mean that other countries didn't find a solution to the problem that is already existing for you. So it's all about researching the kind of solution based technology you are looking for, and also looking for exactly how can you tap it to the fullest potential for your business model specifically. So that's pretty much how it is for me.
Yeah. Stanley, we have to be optimistic in terms of what's the near future, really. What do you think that's going to bring for the entertainment industry? Is there really a way that we can really future-proof the industry and go into the digital spaces and have those discussions with government?
Yeah, look, I think firstly, I must say that we are living in exciting times. I was happy yesterday. I was reading the statement that came from the African National Congress with regard to the matches that were happening regarding artists. And there was an underlining line that was clearly stating that the presidency has set up a committee that will be dealing with the interest of the arts in particular, to make sure that the needs and the challenges of the sector are heard. And also we are fighting to get a space at NEDLEC where all these sectors sit, so that we can be able to place our voices and make sure that people do not take decisions in our absentia as a sector, you know. But over and above, there are a number of things that I want to leave my fellow panelists and the viewers with. We need as South Africans to start understanding that we are 10 years behind from the countries that we look up to in terms of trend setting, business models, and so on. We need to take a step back and look at how do we reconfigure ourselves as a country to be able to be competitive, which is very critical. Secondly, we need to look at examples of how Huawei has now toppled iPhone as the most selling component, the most selling brand worldwide. If you look at how that has been achieved, it will teach you a lot of things. For example, it took about 30 years for that competition to get to where it is. It simply means that as a country, we are now in 2020. If we said, they usually have what is called the Nation Development Plan, NDP, if I'm correct, Francine. Now, the National Development Plan is the one that tells you what does the country needs to achieve in the next 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. What we need to be discussing now is that in 2030, 2040, where do we need to be as South Africa? Where do we want our creative sector, digital trade policies to be? What do we want to be able to do in terms of import and export trade relations? Over and above that, same as fashion and all the other sectors, we need to be able to have a strategy that says, how many people do we need to see coming into South Africa to learn how to do business? Because you must remember, South Africa is a capital in terms of trade examples to the African continent. We've got something greater at each and every part of the continent is looking at us for. We cannot be the very same one that preaches us being a generation of consumers all the way. We need to start making use of, I've got people that are in school right now studying programming, software development, so on and so forth. But I never hear of any conference where the software developers are saying this country can use this as solutions. The music industry can use this as solutions. You know, so it kind of tells me that there's a huge divide between the skills that we are producing in the country versus what we are acquiring globally, and as well as the day-to-day experiences. So for the music industry, luckily we are here advocating for change, fighting on a daily basis on the street and in the boardroom to make sure that the voices of the music industry is well understood. We are not crazy. We're just people that want policies that favors the sector to grow. So each and every young aspiring artist out there who wants to get into the business can find a better enabled environment. And thanks to Gauteng Tourism, thanks to the steering committee, Gauteng Economic Development, and all the partners, with webinars like this, I do believe that the country will find itself sooner.
Yeah, thank you, Stanley. And speaking of music, I know the band is ready and waiting for us. So I'd like to quickly wrap up with you, Francina. Exciting things for Gauteng tourism coming up. I mean, we've implemented a Gauteng merchandising program where, and you'll see some of the items on the racks when we share this video on social media. So we are introducing locally manufactured marketing memorabilia and products in order to raise awareness for brand Gauteng and its iconic spaces and places. And part of what we want to do with this is to encourage linkages and collaborations between the creative sector and the destination by promoting made in Gauteng products that are proudly SA and will enable really the visitor to leave with lasting memories and items that can tell the destination story. Now, collaborations with this are going to be very important with industry role players in this regard. And you know, Francina, maybe just a quick one in a minute. What are some of the other innovative solutions you'd say going to assist with driving the advancement and the growth of adding that value to the Gauteng creative services sector? You're on mute.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, quick one. We want to cross
I
over
apologize. Actually, you know, Anele, it's nothing major. It's just communication. It's just pure communication between government and private sector, between government and SMMEs. It's just pure communication. You know, I'm actually saddened by one of the questions that, if you may allow, from Pel Magubani, which says, Francina spoke earlier about how government has been slow to react to the needs of the creative sector and said there are relief measures currently in place. Are these the relief measures outlined by the national government, or does Gauteng have different plans? Now, when you read something like that, you realize that the communication between government and SMMEs has not been effective, because somebody who's asking this type of question, it tells you that our level of communication has not been right. But in Gauteng, we are trying, in the sense that we have the Gauteng Creative Industry Public Sector Steering Committee, which is a steering committee that consists of national government, provincial government, and municipalities, as well as industry associations, because we prefer not to plan on our own. We prefer to sit with industry associations who show us what their challenges that many SMMEs are facing are, and we try to flesh out solutions together. And to be honest with you, Anele, it has been working. We have given birth to so many SMME development programs. You know, we are really trying on the market access side as well, and having different partnerships and having conversations around certain issues makes it a little bit easier. I mean, once we have a steering committee like this, it makes it easier for us as provincial government to get information from national government and allow certain initiatives to trigger through from national to provincial, and then we make sure that our municipalities at the end of the day benefit from that. So it's really communication, and communication, and in different ways. I mean, right now we are privileged to have digital communication. You know, we've got Microsoft Teams, we've got Zoom, we've got all sorts of platforms. We really have no excuse in terms of not communicating with those who we develop these initiatives for, because at the end of the day, our return on investment is the well-being of the SMMEs that we are investing in.
Absolutely, and we look forward to continuing these discussions, guys, on social media. But I have to wrap up because the band is patient, has been patiently waiting for us, and I'm sure you guys, as the viewers and the attendees, are also looking forward to that one. Panel members, thank you so much for enlightening us today. It has been an absolute pleasure, and like I said, let's continue with the conversations online on social media. We are at Visit Gauteng on Twitter as well as on Instagram, and I Love Gauteng on Facebook. And in terms of my parting shots, now's the time, really. We are gradually opening up. There's an opportunity to come from the worst to make changes for the better for the creative industries as a bedrock, really, a bedrock strength for the province. And I think capacity building to assist in transforming our local talent into a catalyst that's going to drive a dynamic creative industry that can most importantly foster sustainable employment, and doing this while contributing to the economic growth and the enhancement of Destination Gauteng. So that's going to be key. But I think, yes, now's the time. Let's get up, let's get creative, and let's get expressive. I mean, the creative economy starts here. That's my shot. I'm going to cross over to the band now, but I'm going to be signing off now. Have a lovely Thursday. As promised, we'll close off with that special performance by Kitchen Mess. Thank you so much. Have a good one and goodbye.
Thank you. A huge shout out to Gauteng Tourism for having us today, celebrating a new dawn, a new day, and a post COVID-19 South Africa. Thank you very much. A huge shout out to also Trans Africa Radio, One Voice, One Africa. We are live there, and yeah, let's enjoy the music. On keys, we have Tulani on keys, on drum, that is Dumi on drum, on bass, that's Judah bass, on saxophone and trumpet, that's Lifonolo. And thank you very much. We are Kitchen Mess. Enjoy. wathulanje wathulanje wena wathulanje wena wathulanje wena wathulanje mu-Afrika wena wathulanje wena wathulanje lihlezi linjena usizi lihlezi linjena usizi sibe moya munye mina nathani wami angoba mawungekho ungekweduze kwami ebusuku kuyabanda mawungekweduze kwami again ngoma mawungekho mawungekweduze kwami ebusuku kuyabanda mawungekweduze kwami Let's go. Somebody, CEO Chaba Namsanje, CEO Chaba Namsanje. I'm gonna leg it. Let's go. Somebody, I'm gonna leg it. Somebody, CEO Chaba Namsanje, CEO Chaba. Ladies and gentlemen, on keys. Let's go. Oh. Someday, CEO Chaba Namsanje, CEO Chaba Namsanje. I'm not leggy. Let's go. Somebody, I'm not leggy. Sunday, CEO Chaba Namsanje, CEO Chaba Namsanje. Yorata, me I love you. Yorata, me I love. Invisio, you feel away. Invisio. Sandra Sanchez, Please, Thank you. I remember when I lost my Maggie. There was something so crazy about that day. Even your emotions are an echo. So much space. And when you were there, without care, yeah, I was out of touch. Maybe it wasn't because I didn't know enough. Yeah. I just knew too much. I remember when I lost my Maggie. There was something so crazy about that day. And even your emotions had an echo. So much space. And when you were there without care, yeah, I was out of touch. Yeah. Maybe it wasn't because I didn't know enough. I just knew too much. Yeah. 'Cause y'all make me crazy. 'Cause you make me crazy. You make me crazy. Probably. There's no probably. Yeah. And I thought that you were having the time of your life. You gotta think twice, dear love. That is my only advice to you, darling. And I thought that you were having the time of your life. You gotta think twice, dear love. That is my only advice to you, darling. Come on, who do you think you are? Yeah, let's go. Oh my God, this so yeah. You think you got it in control? Yeah. I thought that you were having the time of your life. Yeah. You gotta think twice, still love. That is my only advice to you, darling. Come on, who do you think you are? Yeah, come on, my God, control. You think you got it in control. You think you got it in control. Yeah. And I thought that you were having the time of your life. Yeah. You gotta think twice. You love. And it's my only advice to you, darling. Come on, I'm rooting you. Who do you think you are? Yeah. Oh my God, bless your soul. And you got it in control. You think you got it in control. You think you got it in control? Come on now, who do you think you are? Yeah, that's right. Oh my God, bless your soul. You think you got it in control? 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 You think you got it in control. You think you got it in control. You think you got your life in control. You think you got it in control. Yeah. I'm taking my freedom, living in my soul. Sing it all day long, sing it loud and strong. I'm taking my freedom, moving it in the ground. Whenever I choose to go, it'll take me far. I'm living my life like it's golden, living my life like it's golden, living my life like it's golden. Living my life like it's golden, living my life like it's golden, golden. Living my life like it's golden, 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 living my life, living my I'm living my life, yeah. Yeah. Come on now. Wherever you are around the world, thank you for joining us. We are Kitchen Mess. A huge shout out to Gauteng Tourism, www.gauteng.net. Visit us on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. Visit Gauteng. And Trans-Africa Radio, One Voice, One Africa. Thank you very much. Sukfika la matuke nalingana ikusegi nizama ibambe no iyolentes kabanisa nabazali omakhelwa nomphakathi sithi awubiyano biyano sisalani emakhaya ngenxa yakho biyano biyano asisalani emakhaya ngenxa yakho emndenini kulapho yongithola khona emndenini kulapho yongithola khona kulapho yongithola khona emndenini kulapho yongithola khona kulapho yongithola Ladies and gentlemen, that's Judah on bass. And on saxophone and trumpet, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, on trumpet, ladies and gentlemen, it's on trumpet. And on drums, ladies and gentlemen, on drums. On drums. Let's kill it, let's kill it. Oh yeah. You should open up your heart. What do you feel? Just open up your heart. What do you feel? Is it real? Don't you dare give all the love you have inside. I will, giving all your pretty cares away. Alright, yes, world, hold on. Said you're messing with our future. Tell me no more lies. Oh, world, hold on. One day you will have to answer to the children of the sky. Yeah, world, hold on. Hold on, cause you're messing with our future. Yeah, tell me no more lies. Well, hold on. Cause one day you will have to answer to the children of the sky. The children of the sky. Yeah. Hold on. Said you're messing with our future. Tell me no more lies. One day you will have to answer to the children of the sky. Hold on. Said you're messing with our future. Tell me no more lies. Hold on, yeah. One day you will have to answer to the children of the sky. As I woke up one morning, just thinking about the night before. We were dancing in a club in Kingston Town, straight into the break of dawn. That summer vibe was heated, your body on the dance floor. You look something different, yeah. Reach out your hand and held me close. Oh, whisper to me, baby, hold me tight tonight. And oh, put your arms around me till the morning. Oh, tonight, as a DJ turned the party, you brought me out on the dance floor. It feels so something special, yeah, really now. Now, if you lay down, summer vibe was heated, your body on the dance floor, yeah. You reached on and held my hand, oh no, baby. Whisper to me and help me close and say, oh, whisper to me, baby, hold me tight tonight. And oh, put your arms around me till the morning. Ay, 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 no, 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 no. Whisper to me, baby, hold me tight tonight. Oh, put your arms around me till the morning. Ay, ay, ay. Ooh, yeah. My boy Africa, my boy, yeah, my boy Africa. Zikhalile izinkomo zethu, zikhalile izingane zethu, zikhalile abomama bethu, bakhalile abangani bethu, get in there, get in there, get on there, get on there, get on there, get on there. Zikhalile izinkomo zethu, zikhalile izingane zethu, bakhalile abomama bethu, zikhalile izingane zethu, Sitimela, 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 siha, sitimela, 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 sihambangamana, siveleta lagu bagi. Sitimela, sihamba ngamala, siveleta lagu bagi. Sitimela, sihamba, sitimela, sihamba, sitimela, sihamba, sitimela, sihamba, sitimela, sihamba, sitimela, sihamba, sitimela. Sahaba Yisikimela, Sahaba Yisikimela, Sahaba Yisikimela, Sahaba Yisikimela, Sahaba Yisikimela, Sahaba Yisikimela. Mama, Jesus, I'm a Baba, Jesus, I'm a Mama, Jesus, I'm a Coco, Jesus, I'm a Jesus, I'm a Mama, Jesus, I'm a Coco, yes, yes, my boy, Africa. Jesus, I'm a Mama, Jesus, I'm a Coco, yes, yes, my boy, Africa. Yeah. Caesar Sabo Mamas, Caesar Sabo Cocoles, yes, yes, my boom, Africa. You Caesar Sabo Mamas, Caesar Sabo Cocoles, yes, yes, my boom, Africa. Yeah. My boom, yeah. My boom, Africa. I want y'all to put your right hand over your chest and go. Go Sicily, Africa, Malopagamis, Mandalay, Israeli time down to Earth, see the se chava sai su offerite punto una sola o se volete se chava sa Yesu se chava sa South Africa. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. www.gauteng.net, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Africa Transnet Africa. Trans Africa Radio. Yeah. One voice, one Africa. Thank you very much. We are Kitchen Mess. Thank you.